I had spent like 12 years in the royal trenches covering the British royals. And, during that time, you're sort of asking yourself, like, what if in certain scenarios? Like, what if the palace released a statement? What if they hired someone that could, like, maybe do the job a little better? And so, alongside that and just the weird and wonderful side of the behind the scenes that no one gets to see, I always felt like this was a story that needed telling, and I just finished my last book that was a pretty serious nonfiction. And so when our agents connected us to work together, I was like unsure whether Robin would even get it. I think a lot of people have no interest in the royals, and what I loved about this book was that it needed no interest in the royals.
No.
But when we did meet up, it was kind of like a match made in heaven.
It really was. Yeah, I was really nervous because I had never co-written anything before at all. Like, I'm very private. I get a little squirrely brain. Like, when I'm working, it's not something I always want to share with people. And we met for lunch in Los Angeles, and I remember I was like, if you didn't have a car, you took an Uber there.
Yeah,
and so during lunch, I was like, if I like this guy, I'll offer him a ride back to his house. And if I don't, he can just take an Uber back to the house. And I ended up giving him a ride back. And we had lunch for like almost 4 hours. We just chatted about family, life, dogs, the book idea. And we talked about what the first chapter should look like. And we hadn't even told our agents yet that we wanted to work together. And a couple days later, I kind of wrote like a very rough beginning of a first chapter. And I sent it to him, and I was like, you don't even have to like this. We don't have to use it, but this is the tone I'm thinking. This is what I'm thinking for the book. And then I watched my text messages, and I kept seeing like the 3 dots appear and then disappear, then appear. And I was like, does he like it? And you did. And we were just on the same page from the very beginning with how we wanted these stories and these characters to unfold.
I'm obsessed that dots moment appearing and disappearing happens in the book. So it was great that carried over.
Extremely relatable.
Yeah, when we started, we sort of I had a rough idea of what I wanted to achieve with the book. We had spoken about the characters very early on and like who's necessary to kind of drive the plot. And we then mapped out kind of a skeleton of basically the entire book, like the story arc for our protagonist, Lauren, who moves from Washington, D.C., the kind of like breakneck world of politics, to the Buckingham Palace press office. And then we sort of outlined each chapter one by one. And then it was like this busy Google Doc that just kept getting bigger and bigger. We would always see each other's names sort of like pop up, like she's on this chapter, I'm on that chapter. And I think despite it sounding overwhelming for like 2 authors to be on the same project, because we were so in sync with the way we thought about what was important for these characters and what was necessary for the story, like everything was aligned.
Yeah.
Like our voices in the book, you can't sense that there's 2 authors there.
No, that was my biggest concern is, does it feel like now Omid has taken over the chapter or anything like that? No, we both live in Los Angeles now, so it was so easy to get together. We would meet at restaurants. He, would come over with his dog, and our dogs would run around, and we would just be sitting in my living room just being like, okay, chapter 8, like what happens? Like, I always say neither of us could have written this book without the other person, and it really was a collaboration, which was so much fun. Like, if I ever have to write a book by myself, it's going to be really hard again. No one to talk to.
It's a very lonely thing writing by yourself, and you don't often have someone to ask, like, what do you think about this? So then you waste like 3 days writing it, then hating it, deleting it, and starting over. And you can save a lot of time by just picking up the phone and be like, what do you think about this? No? Okay, fine.
Thanks.
On to the next.
Yeah.
It was nice.
It was great.
That it's literally the never-ending soap opera. You've got soaps out here that have run for like 70 seasons. It's the same with the British royals. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's a story of a dysfunctional family. And so whilst we have nothing in common with their privileges and their ways of life, we do connect with parts of their stories at different times. And everyone has like grown up at the same time as a particular royal, whether it's this generation's or the previous or even the next. And so there is that kind of interest. And I also think in America, there's nothing like it in the history of the US. And so to have something that is so alien, but also so fancy and like that just has the glamour and the grandeur, it's like you can't keep your eyes off it.
I feel like especially in America, it's the Disneyification of the idea of being a princess. It's the palace, and all of those movies end the second they kiss. And then, or it's like they get married and they're happily ever after, and you don't actually see what that looks like. But I think, we're always going to be fascinated with the big dress, the weddings, the the town crier announcing the birth of, you know, a new royal or whatever. So I feel like it's the expectations don't always live up to maybe the reality of the situation, but we really love the expectations.
We wanted to make sure that none of the royals mentioned or talked about in the book had anything in common with the real ones. This is its own royal universe, separate reality. And I didn't want people to be like, that's Harry and Meghan, or that's the Andrew scandal, or whatever it is, you know. But at the same time, I wanted people to learn how the cookie's made, you know, that kind of inner working of the palace and how the comms office is and what the press secretaries are like during crisis is very much like a real depiction of what I witnessed over the years, what I've seen on the inside. And listen, there are so many movies and books that depicts different aspects of royal life, but I feel like no one's gone to the back of the palace.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is the ugly part that is like the back of a 5-star hotel, where at the front you've got all the beautiful stuff, and at the back it's like the strip lighting and people just trying to get jobs done on a very poor salary. But they're the ones that hold it together. And so telling their story and for the royals to almost be like secondary characters in this was really important.
Yeah, we always joke that, like, the royals, you'll see the back of their head. Or there's, like, a running joke in the book that our main character, Lauren, people are actively working to keep her away from the royals because they don't know what she's going to do and what kind of chaos she'll cause. So people are trying to keep her as far away as possible.
Ooh, you know, both came with their dangers. I think any kind of dalliance with Jasper equaled the end of Lauren's job. Whereas I think...
And life as she knows it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it either goes the full distance and she enters a path she never thought she'd find herself on.
Yeah.
Or people find out and put an end to it and her time at the palace. But I think with Oscar, it's a different risk. It's like, I've been on that side where you have a friendship with someone at the palace and you have very different goals. For me, it's the headline. For them, it's like protecting that royal or creating a different narrative, maybe even a false narrative around the story. And so for Lauren, she's almost sort of risking the compromisation of her work itself very early on. And I think we see her take those very kind of slow steps with Oscar at the beginning because she doesn't know if he's a wolf in sheep's clothing or if he's actually got her back on this. And there is a version of that I experienced where it's kind of like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I just didn't have the romance.
I feel like too, like Jasper, like you said, like he's a royal that's returning to the royal fold. He's working as a royal for the very first time. He's been in New Zealand and he's an outsider and he's learning this whole new world. And that's exactly what's happening with Lauren. She comes to Buckingham Palace and suddenly is in a world she doesn't understand. So I think they connect on that emotional level. But Oscar is like, you said, 7th grade crush, where it's like, did he text? Did he call? Is he going to text? Is he going to call? And I also feel like he is so smart and Lauren is so smart that they really meet. They have like a really great conversation between them. Their intelligence, they're really matched on that level. And I feel like both of these guys attract different parts of Lauren to them.
Yeah, they're both chess players.
They
in a way.
are.
They're sort of always
That's a good
planning
way
the
to put
next
it.
move.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see that game between the two of them.
They're crafty. We both didn't know. I think it wasn't that we disagreed,
Yeah.
we just didn't know.
It was sort of, that was the one part, because we really mapped out the whole book, but the very end, like that note that we end on, we were never sure.
Yeah.
At the same time, we were slowly building this long list of stuff we want to put in the next book.
Yeah.
And so there's always this feeling of like, where we land here isn't the finished ending. This is just where we leave Lauren in her journey, and it's a satisfying end, but it's one that leaves a few questions still.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure we ended this book. Like I hate reading 350 pages and then it ends on a cliffhanger. I'm like, no, I need an ending. So it definitely has a solid ending, but I feel like there are always options for Lauren. Yeah. As we were writing, I would text Omid, I'm like, I wrote a scene with Oscar. I'm like, I really like Oscar now. I'm really into Oscar. And then like we'd write Jasper and be like, ooh, but Jasper's really good too. So I feel like
you were very back and forth.
I still am.
She's a flip-flopper for sure.
I can't commit.
You know, with Jasper, it's interesting because he grew up away from the royal bubble. And so he's been able to develop his kind of emotional IQ, if you will, away from the things that perhaps might stunt it if one was to stay within it. He found his backstory is that he found his college sweetheart. They got married, they lived together in New Zealand and built a beautiful life and business with each other. And of course that came to a crashing end. And so he's also finding his purpose in his journey. He's figuring out who he is. And at the same time, so's Lauren. And I think they've met at like the perfect time in their lives where both of them are extremely vulnerable, but also open to new experiences. And so it's why it works out so perfectly for them to sort of start building this connection.
Yeah. I feel like for Jasper too, like he is so worried about protecting Lauren and fully understands like what the tabloid press could do to her family, her reputation, everything, if there was even a whiff of romance between them. But yet at the same time, if you're feeling something that strongly, it's very hard to deny and push it away too. So I think he's caught in this real dance of, I care about this person, but I also want to protect them because I care about them. And it's sort of a catch-22.
We've got so many great characters in this book. As much as we have a love triangle at the heart of it, there's also a great ensemble within the Palace workplace. We've got Joy Hamilton, the diversity czar, who's like the best friend that we all want, but pretty much. And at the same time, there are other characters too that I think we want to explore more of their pasts and also the journeys that they're on. I also think there are just some like big royal moments that we've yet to visit in the book. We do not have a funeral in this book. We do not have a wedding in this book. There are a lot of sort of landmark royal moments that we've all known in our lives that I think we'd love to kind of play with versions of in these pages.
I mean, I would just love to write the behind the scenes of planning a royal wedding. Like, what does that look like? Like, how chaotic is that? Like, that's going to require some serious research. But I feel like there's so much fun to be had there of, like a duck swimming. You just see a duck gliding along, but underneath it's paddling furiously. So I feel like that would be what we end up writing.
Yeah, well, we were so lucky that the show was picked up for development after writing just 60 pages together. And so it was like we didn't even know the ending at this point. We didn't even know
past chapter 3.
But it was encouraging that people saw the same vision. And I think what's really fun now, especially that the book's finished, I'm working with our showrunner, Emily Fox, who's incredible and just, really has a good hand on where this story goes beyond the pages of the book and also how we adapt the story itself. So we have pages of the script done. There's also a lot that hasn't been done yet, but it is exciting, and it's also nice to be able to bring to life some of the moments that didn't work on a page, but will be great 1-minute gags on screen that, just would be a little different.
I can't wait to watch it. I'm very excited.
I think when adapting a book, you're able to explore the emotions and journey of a character across many pages. That's like a slow dance with the reader, and you can really kind of fall into a nice rhythm with that. With a show, you kind of have to sell the journey in the first few minutes. And so I think like top loading a pilot episode with stuff that doesn't come until much later in the book, it's just like being able to figure out how to grab someone and tell someone how great this journey is going to be in a really short period of time on screen. I think that's been the kind of most challenging part. And also just the speed at which it takes place. We wrote this book pretty quickly. I would say, although this has been a 2-year project, it was only about 11 months of that was like solid writing.
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
With the show, we've been in development pretty much since March 2024. And so I didn't realize until I got involved how long it takes to take something to screen. It's exciting, but at the same time, like my background's journalism, I'm used to churning out copy and getting it online the next day. So the impatient side of me is struggling a little.
There's a lot more people involved with the TV. Yeah, it's not just the two of us anymore.
I want to hear yours first.
Oh my gosh. So in the very beginning of the book, Jasper surprises Lauren, and she does not realize that this is actually Jasper, the Duke of Exeter, newly returned to be a working royal. And he breaks into her office. They kind of fight. She thinks he's the mailman. And I think that will be really fun to see, just that. And then the realization that Jasper is not who she thought he was. He is definitely not the mailman.
Yeah. I think also just that first lunch with Oscar.
Yeah, that was
when he finally convinced convinces Lauren to kind of spend time with him outside of the palace, and it's set up as a very professional thing, but just seeing those instant fireworks between them, there's that chemistry there from the get-go, and also just seeing, I guess, the two minds meet. As I was saying earlier, they're both kind of chess players, and so just seeing that back and forth between them is really fun.
Yeah, I think that'll be really fun to see on the screen.
Yeah, you know, in the pages of the book, we just compare a couple of the characters to people. And so we talk about how Jasper has this kind of like Hemsworth brother quality to him.
Yeah.
And the same with Oscar sort of being like a younger Henry Golding.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it's so different on screen, and you want to find like the right chemistry, the right balance. I always say that if this was being done 10, 15 years ago, then Anne Hathaway would be like the dream Lauren. So it's finding like that energy today.
Yeah.
No, you go first.
I mean, heated rivalry. I watched, burn through that more than a few times. Like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Like, I think as a creative person too, it was so inspiring. Like, you're like, oh, here's a show that got no money, just happened to get picked up by HBO 3 days before, and becomes the biggest thing of the year next to like K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, it just came out of the blue, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. It just made me, in a world that doesn't always make me happy, that show made me very happy, and I think that's no small thing.
Absolutely.
As for me, what makes me swoon is someone that will watch horror movies with me. I'm a big horror head. I'm so excited for Scream 7. So like, I always, when I was on the dating apps, I always had like in my profile that I was like, you must be into horror. Like, that is such a big thing for me.
I remember the first time like we met, I'm like, we get along, we have so much in common, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go see, what was it, Weapons? You were gonna go see Weapons, and I was like, have fun, sir. Like, I think I asked you, I'm like, how was Warriors? And you're like, do you mean Weapons?
Yeah,
I was like, yes.
She's not one for that.
No,
but...
no, it's not for me.